Hi, this is Professor Scott Norman, and today we're in the PSU Automotive Fuels Lab, and we're going to be talking about biodiesel. Now, before we talk about biodiesel, we need to talk a little bit about waste vegetable oil. So I've been making biodiesel now for probably, 5, 6, 7 years, and I have all different types of ways of doing it. I started out 7 years ago making it one way, and now I'm making it a little bit different. So when I started to make my biodiesel, I would put my 1 liter waste vegetable oil in a container like this, or in a container like this. This is a sample from 2017 is what it is. This one right here is maybe a sample of 2018. It was a bigger container works out better because when you're pouring out the biodiesel, which is on top, and your glycerin, which is on bottom, it's easier to get the glycerin out when you have a bigger container. When you have a small bottle like this, when you're making your test batch of 1 liter, it's just hard to get everything out if it's pretty thick. One more thing about the plastic containers is it seems like there's always a layer of biodiesel on the outside of it. It just doesn't seem like it seals very good. It seems like if I set this on the table after 1 year, 2 year, that there's always some what I call schnugget, just some bad stuff that is seeping out through the plastic, and it's always kind of wet. And so what I tended to go towards over the last couple of years is I started to make smaller test batches of biodiesel, 500 milliliters, and I put them in a nice mason jar. By doing that, it seems like that there's no seepage. I'm not getting any sticky stuff on my hands. Right now, my hands are sticky just from touching those older containers, those plastic containers. And it's a little bit cleaner, and it's actually a nicer display. So what I have here is I have a biodiesel that is, I went to the store and I bought some sunflower oil. So I have some sunflower oil biodiesel that I ended up testing and looking at the properties of. And, if I take a look at it, I got maybe 80% biodiesel on the top, and I have a glycerin at the bottom, so I have not separated this out, just let it settle. I got some peanut oil here, which is about the same thing. It's a little bit of a different color, but you can see you got your biodiesel on top and your glycerin on the bottom. And then I did corn oil, so there's my corn oil. And then I got my waste vegetable oil. And so what I really want to talk about is the waste vegetable oil. So in the waste vegetable oil, we get our waste oil from the student center, and whatever they fry over their French fries, chicken nuggets, whatever, they're frying that stuff in there. So we'll go over there and we'll get our waste vegetable oil. We have a hand pump that the students will try to pump that out of there. During the summer months, if it's a little bit colder, they have to bucket it out. And, there's a big push from students to say, ooh, I can make my own biodiesel by getting free waste vegetable oil. And, hey, I don't have to spend any money, and I guess there's a good saying saying that there's nothing free, there's no free lunch. And the time and the effort and the agony of getting the waste vegetable oil out of a big vat of old fryer grease is not a fun thing to do. I'll tell you what. Going to the pump and pumping diesel fuel into your truck is pretty easy. Everything else is hard. As far as when you get that waste vegetable oil, normally we'll put it in 5-gallon buckets and then we'll let it settle. We have different filters that we'll use, so we'll start off with a filter like this, like a bucket filter we'll put on top of the bucket. And this is a pretty big filter, it's like 200 microns. It's to catch the big chunk of chicken that's been sitting there rotting for weeks and weeks and weeks. And oh my gosh, if you're sensitive to smell, this is not the project for you. There's nothing worse than smelling rancid waste vegetable oil, maybe throw up. I put that in categories. When my students are filtering down their waste vegetable oil, getting ready to make biodiesel, I don't let them do it in the shop. I don't let them do it indoors. I say, hey guys, do that all outside because it will stink up the shop and that smell will stay around for days. So we'll start off filtering it, getting 100, 200 microns. We'll eventually put the oil through through the filter stock. So this is a good example of a filter stock that works pretty good. We end up hanging it, and we end up pouring the filtered biodiesel through it to filter down to 2, if not 1 micron. I prefer 1 micron filters. That way I know that I'm getting a good quality product. I don't want any thick residue, anything that's not filtered, to go through injection pumps and injectors and clogging up fuel filters and stuff like that. So it's probably easier up front to filter it down to that low level of 1 or 2 microns. And so this is an example of biodiesel that was made out of wet vegetable oil. And probably the biggest thing I had to show you here is that when you look at the amount of volume, this is 500 milliliters. And this is 500 milliliters we started out with, but if you compare how much more glycerin and just junk that is settled down to the bottom, and so when you're running waste vegetable oil, you know, it's already been used, you know, it has contaminations in it, that your product, your final product, isn't going to be as high as far as percentage. You know, we're looking at under 50% biodiesel with the waste vegetable oil. Everything else is glycerin, versus if I'm using the raw canola oil, you know, freshly bought from the store or from a supplier that's already been filtered or already good quality, you see that you're getting a lot more biodiesel product out of it. I do have a couple examples here of unfiltered waste vegetable oil, which I don't dare open this because it's going to stink. It's not smelling very well. But the bottom line is that, you know, as far as filtering process, if I let this thing sit out in the sun and heat it up a little bit and just let it sit in a 5-gallon bucket for 2 or 3 weeks, that all the heavy chicken grease, bad stuff that's in that fryer grease settles down to the bottom. So if you could drain that out of the bottom, then you got a pretty good filtered substance you can start out with. So maybe you don't have to go through 5 different filtering methods in order to get down to your 1 or 2 microns. You could jump to a 80 micron, to a 50 micron, maybe a 20, down to a 1 or 2, because it's already settled down. So when I take a look at this waste vegetable oil that has been filtered, so this has already been filtered through our filter process, ready to be either used as waste vegetable oil as the fuel, or actually used to make biodiesel. You know, that and the settled without being filtered, you know, it's pretty similar as far as just sitting there and settling. Now, some word to the wise on using waste vegetable oil or straight vegetable oil as a fuel. We did that here at PSU, and we did it in a 1991 Ford truck. And so we had a separate fuel tank that we put in the bed of the truck. We heated up the fuel with a coolant going through the fuel system. We had a separate switcher valve that is actually a factory switcher valve the truck was set up for dual tanks. So now we had it set up for 3 tanks. And so we would start the vehicle up on diesel fuel, get it nice and warm, wait till that waste vegetable oil got hot, and then we would switch over to run on waste vegetable oil. And when we did that, you know, there was really no noticeable difference in engine operation. As far as emissions, we actually ran it on a dyno, couldn't really see any main differences. When we shut off the vehicle, we would go back to diesel. So you start it up on diesel, you end with diesel, but then once again the engine's warmed up, you run it you can run it on that waste vegetable oil on the old mechanical systems. And of course, you want to make sure that all that waste vegetable oil is cleared out of the fuel system, you know, injection pumps and injectors before you shut it off. So we ran that for about 3 years until the vehicle just one day just didn't start anymore, you know. And so then we took it apart and we tried to determine what was going on with it. But this is the filter out of this, and so when you take a look at the inside of it, I don't know if you guys can see the inside of that filter or not, but when you take a look at it, there is snugget and there's stuff just all in the bottom of that filter. There was just flakes of stuff down in there. And so you can see maybe on the end here of this filter right here, you get to see some of the residue on that. So obviously, if you're going to run something like B100 or waste vegetable oil, your filters need to be changed a lot more regularly. You know, some people will put extra filters on there to try to stop something like this from happening. Something else that I wanted to know too is that our fuel tank that we had, that the level of actual waste vegetable oil was probably, right around this level right here. And so this is metal that was inside that tank. And you can kind of take a look at all the corrosion and all the gunk that formed on this piece of metal as it sat in the tank for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And so, so that's something else that you have to worry about. It'd be better to have plastic tank, plastic in the system, not any metal at all, because you could run into similar problems like that. All in all, it was a good experience running the waste vegetable oil in a vehicle. We did it, and we proved that we could do it, and we ran it until it didn't run anymore. And so for future projects, we're going to be running B100. So we're going to be running biodiesel. It could either be sunflower biodiesel or peanut oil biodiesel, or it could be our waste vegetable oil. But run that in the truck and then see how that goes. This is Scott Norman at Pittsburgh State University, and if you're wanting any more fuel-related videos, you can go to my Professor Pintane channel on YouTube, and there's a lot more videos out there for the knowledge and increasing level of expertise in the fuel system. Thank you very much. You guys have a good day.